We're practicing some 6-deck blackjack today, which is a little bit rare for my channel, but there's going to be something for everyone. My beginners, the first few rounds will have the count posted at the bottom of the screen. For the rest of you, I'm going to kind of front load it with some of these lower cards here at the beginning so that we can get some nice high counts that might have some deviations. So for those of you that are a little bit more experienced and know some deviations, maybe you can comment when you see one down below or something like that. But because I need to front load it, let me get the shuffled up really good and I'll insert those at the beginning. All right, we're still going to cut the cards like normal here, right there in the middle. However, I'm going to set this against my shoe over here, and I'm just going to take about the first deck or so. And like I said, we're going to insert all of these. We'll mix them up a little bit into the middle of this. There we go, that was better. Do that maybe once more. Okay. So that should be nice and good now. Those are going to go right there at the beginning. The rest of these, let's cut off about a deck or so. And then the rest of these will go into our shoe just like this. We'll take a burn card, throw it into the discard tray. I do have a discard tray cam for you. We're playing with 2 ploppies. So we're going to be playing the minimum, table minimum of just $10 every time. And then our card counter in the middle here, they are going to be using a bet spread, which looks like this. I'll put it on the screen here for you as well. They're also going to be playing a table minimum at a true count of 0 or lower, anything negative. And then above that, true 1, we're playing with $50 just in one spot since these are taken. And then we're going up 50 after that. True 2 is 100, true 3 is 150, all the way up to a true 6, which is $300 in one spot. Because we're front loaded, hopefully get a nice high count going. I'm going to be using deviations and things with this guy. For the outside 2, I'm just going to be playing basic strategy as best as I can. If I cross my wires a little bit, I apologize. I'm sure you'll let me know down below in the comments if I do. Otherwise, you guys ready to count? This is shoe 1 of 3. Ready, get set. Let's count. All right, lock in your count. This guy making a little comeback there at the end. Otherwise, he was getting murdered. Our card counter was doing pretty good there until we started betting those big bets. We lost a few. Anyway, let's see if our count is correct. This last chunk behind the cut card plus our burn card should be opposite of what your count currently is, your running count. So let's try it. I'm going to count out for us. We have D1, D2, D3, D2, D3, D4, D5, D6, D7, D8, D9, D8, D9, D8, D7, D8, D7, D8, D7, D6, D5, D6, D7, D8, D9, D10, D9, D10, D11, D10, D11, D10, D11, D12, D13, D14, D15, D14, D15, and D16. Yeah, I think I had us at plus 16 in my head, so Minus 16, that's crazy. All those high cards are hiding behind the cut card. We need those to come out before the cut card, but hey, you saw it. It was a fair shuffle. By the way, these guys started at 300, 300, and this guy started with 3,000. And so it looks like this guy might be up a little bit. This guy's down, and our card counter, a little tough to tell with some of those hundreds missing, but definitely some 25s that have grown a little bit. All right, I'm gonna get these shuffled up and then kind of reinsert those low cards to front load our next shoe. All right, once again, we're gonna cut the cards, and then we will insert these into that first deck. And while I do that, just a reminder, I learned how to count cards through Blackjack Apprenticeship. If you haven't yet, you absolutely, if you want to take this card counting thing seriously, you need to become a member over at BJA or Blackjack Apprenticeship. If you go to the pinned comment of this video or in the description, there's going to be my affiliate link, which I would greatly appreciate if you use. It is a great way to help out this channel, and I have never met a single person who joined Blackjack Apprenticeship and became a member that said that they regretted it. So it's positive EV, you might say. It is. They have pro betting software, casino 4-in-1, where you can find all the best games to play in the country, and it is one of the best tools that you could ever purchase if you're going to take this blackjack thing seriously. All right, our deck is now front loaded, and I will, that's a little thick there on the cut card, put that back a little further, just a touch less than a deck, maybe right at a deck. And get a burn card in our discard tray. Got our discard tray camera back up here for us. Same minimums. All right, you guys ready to count? Ready, get set. Round 2. All right, massive count there. I have us at a count currently that's a lot closer to 0 than where it was in the middle. So let's see if that is right or not. See if your count, lock it in, see if your count is correct. And then we'll have one more shoe after this. All right, so again, this plus the burn cards for the opposite. We have D1, D2, D3, D2, D1, D2, D3, D2, D3, D2, D3, D2, D1, 0, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 0, D1, 2, D1, 0, D1, 0, 1, 2, 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 0, 1, 2, 1, 0, 1, and 0. So yeah, we did finish there right at 0. So hopefully our bets were right or so. There was a couple instances where it was real borderline, like that insurance bet that I was debating about. Okay, depending on your deck estimation skills, you may or may not have taken that at that particular point. And so I opted not to. And there's also a couple at the end where you could tell I was really debating, because I don't play a whole lot of 6-deck anymore. So I apologize about that. You guys might even be better than me on some of those. But anyway, I'll be back for round 3 in just a second. All right, gonna cut the deck again. We are back for round number 3, or shoot number 3, I should say. And we are going to again kind of throw those low cards in. Always cut off too much. We're gonna throw those low cards into the front here so we can front load our deck. By the way, I do have another tip for you at the end that kind of has to deal with why we are winning so much here, and you can too. But before I do that, and before we play out this third shoe and I get this kind of in here, I just want to remind you that if you want to practice on your own before you go to the casino, and you want to do so with real high quality cards and chips and things like that, if you go to casinosupply.com, use code A1BJ at checkout, you get 10% off your entire order, whether that's a chip set, a felt even, discard trays, cards, shoes, anything like that. If you use code A1BJ, you get 10% off your entire order at casinosupply.com. All right, let's throw this into the shoe and put a burn card in our discard tray. Got our discard tray camera back here for us. Let's see again. I think this guy's still up a little bit. This guy looks like he's down slightly. Actually, might be kind of close. We'll count them at the end, and then of course our card counter is way up. They are at least up 1,000 because we won those chips last time, I believe. But we're all starting off here with our minimum bets. You guys ready to count for shoe number 3? Ready, get set, let's count. All right, very similar to the last one where count shot way up and then ended super low again, close to zero. I actually got below zero this time. So let's see if we're right. This plus the burn card will be the opposites of our counts. So we have 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 0, D1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 4. And still at 4. So this was plus 4. We should have finished at minus 4. So yeah, I actually dropped down below 0 there. And I think that's about where I had it as well. Okay. So a couple things with this. Hopefully you got your counts right. Those first couple, I had it on the screen for you. The last one I did not. And so hopefully you're able to count along with that, and hopefully I go back and my bets were good and I was able to count along with it too. But let's first off start by counting up our ploppies. Remember, they both started with $300, so this guy still has 200, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 255, so they lost $45 total. This guy has 200, 250, 310, excuse me. So this guy made $10. So that's the beauty of just blackjack, playing basic strategy. I wasn't using deviations. I tried not to, at least with those two. One guy was down a little bit, one guy was up a little bit. And so this is why it's one of the best games at the casino, even if you don't know how to count cards, because it's if you play perfectly, it's about a 0.5, 0.6% house edge compared to something like roulette, which is, I believe, over 4% house edge. And so it's way worse than a different carnival game or something like that. Okay, the card counter, however, they start with $3,000, and we are definitely a winner. So let me count this up here for us, and I'll be right back with you. And then I have that tip after that. Okay, so just real quick here, these are in stacks of thousands. And so if we do this with our $500 chips, I'll do the same thing. Now we have 1,000, 2,000, 3, 4, 5, and then 500, 6, 7, 8, 9, $6,000, and then 25. These are also in 25, so 50, 75, and then 85. So a really good win there, $6,085 when we start with just 3,000. Now that tip I said at the beginning of that last shoe is that we're winning, and there's a reason for that, and that is because we were front loading our decks. Now you can't just go to the casino and ask them to do that. That'd be ridiculous. But what you can do is stand behind the table and do something that's called back counting. And then when the count jumps high enough, then you sit down and play until maybe the count drops to 0, and then you get back up and leave again. And so you're only playing in those positive counts, and you can see what happens when you're playing in positive counts. It's a great way to build your bankroll if you're just starting out and you can't afford to play through some of those negative counts, which would do the exact opposite. We would lose a majority of our bankroll if we played through those negative counts. All right, so a couple things that you could do with that is, one, on my Patreon, I have a card counting bankroll series that I put out one per week, every week. We finished a couple of them. We just started another one a couple weeks ago. So if you want, you can join that. The lowest tier, it's like $5 a month, gives you access to that. And worst case, you help me out. You know, it's less than a coffee. That's like, what, half of a coffee these days? So it's crazy. So I would appreciate that if you do want to check out my Patreon. The second thing is, here on the screen, I talk about more about back counting. You can watch that video next and just see kind of how that's put into practice.